Picture this. It's January 20th, 2025, and Donald J. Trump stands on the steps of the Capitol once again, sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. The man the experts had buried, the one polls said had no chance, the one who had been counted out more times than most people ever get counted in, is back at the pinnacle of power. His businesses span the globe, his net worth hovers near $7 billion, and his influence reaches every corner of American life. But it wasn't always like this. 35 years earlier, in the early 1990s, Donald Trump was staring at a personal debt load approaching $900 million. Creditors circled like sharks. Tabloids printed his name in the same breath as ruin. Banks put him on a personal allowance, and on one walk down Fifth Avenue, he pointed to a homeless man and told his then-wife Marla, "That guy is worth $900 million more than I am right now." This is the story of how a man who had every reason to disappear chose instead to fight, to reinvent, and to climb higher than anyone thought possible, not once but over and over again. Donald Trump was not born in poverty. He grew up in a 23-room mansion in Jamaica Estates, Queens, the son of Fred Trump, a self-made real estate developer who built thousands of middle-class apartments in Brooklyn and Queens. Fred was tough, demanding, and successful. Donald learned early what ambition looked like. After military academy and Wharton, he joined the family business in 1968 and quickly set his sights beyond the outer boroughs. In 1971, he moved to Manhattan, renamed the company the Trump Organization, and began chasing the skyline. His first big win came with the Commodore Hotel. With help from tax abatements and bank financing, he turned a rundown property into the gleaming Grand Hyatt. It was flashy, it was bold, and it put the Trump name on the map. He developed Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, a bronze and glass statement that screamed success. Casinos in Atlantic City followed, Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, and the crown jewel, the $1.1 billion Trump Taj Mahal. By the late 1980s, he was the face of American excess, private jets, a 282-foot yacht, a football team, beauty pageants, and a brand that seemed unstoppable. But the higher the climb, the harder the fall. Trump had borrowed aggressively. Interest rates were punishing, the economy slowed, and Atlantic City became saturated with casinos. The Taj Mahal opened in April 1990 and defaulted on bond payments within months. By 1991, the Taj filed for Chapter 11. Then came the Plaza Hotel and Trump Castle in 1992. Over the next 2 decades, his casino companies would file for bankruptcy protections 6 separate times: 1991, 1992, twice, 2004, and twice in 2009. Total debt across the empire exceeded $3 billion at points. Trump himself was personally on the hook for nearly $1 billion. Banks restructured, bondholders took haircuts, workers lost pensions and jobs. Trump later said the bankruptcies were strategic uses of the law available to any business, but the human cost was real, and the public humiliation was relentless. Newspapers ran headlines calling him finished. Late-night comics made him the punchline. His first marriage to Ivana ended amid the chaos. The second, to Marla Maples, followed soon after. He kept fighting, negotiating with creditors for hours on end, but the pressure was crushing. In interviews years later, he described those nights. "I owed billions. Many people thought I was finished. Yet he refused to accept it. Defeat is not in my vocabulary." Those years were the true rock bottom. Trump has said he learned more from failure than from success, but living it was brutal. He had to sell the yacht, the airline, pieces of the casinos. He gave up majority stakes just to keep breathing. The man who once moved markets with a single phone call was now begging bankers for more time. There were moments when quitting would have been the rational choice. Friends and advisors urged him to walk away, declare personal bankruptcy, start fresh under protection. He could have disappeared into quiet real estate management and lived comfortably on whatever was left. But something inside wouldn't let him. He kept the core properties, kept the brand alive through licensing deals on everything from ties to bottled water, and kept telling himself the story wasn't over. He later wrote in The Art of the Comeback that the key was refusing to let the world define you when you're down. While others saw collapse, he saw a temporary restructuring. He focused on the solution, not the problem. He learned the art of the long negotiation, how to turn creditors into partners, how to keep control even when giving up equity. Those lessons, forged in fire, would prove priceless later. The turnaround began quietly at first, then exploded in primetime. Trump had always been a master of publicity, but in 2003 he got the call that changed everything. British producer Mark Burnett, fresh off Survivor, pitched a new reality show, contestants competing for a job with Trump in his own tower. Trump was skeptical at first, his brand was still recovering, but he saw the potential. The Apprentice premiered in January 2004. Trump sat in the boardroom, delivered the now iconic "You're fired," and America couldn't look away. The show became a cultural phenomenon. Over 14 seasons and spin-offs, he earned roughly $427 million in salary, licensing, and endorsements, money that paid down debts and funded new projects. More important, it rebuilt his image from tabloid casualty to decisive, no-nonsense boss. The brand roared back. Golf courses, hotels, international licensing deals poured in. He had turned personal fame into a business model that others couldn't copy. Mark Burnett believed in the version of Trump the world had laughed at, and that belief paid off for both of them.
By the mid-2010s, the empire was thriving again, but Trump was restless. He had teased politics for decades, Reform Party flirtations, early talk of the White House, but in 2015 he decided to go all in. On June 16th, he rode the golden escalator down in Trump Tower and announced his candidacy. The political class treated it as entertainment. Pundits gave him 1% odds. Betting markets had him at 100-1 or worse. Poll after poll showed him trailing the entire Republican field. Commentators called it a publicity stunt that would flame out by summer. He faced 17 seasoned opponents, a hostile media, and an establishment that dismissed him as unserious. But he kept going. He spoke in a language voters hadn't heard in years, straight talk about trade, immigration, forgotten communities. He dominated free media with rallies that filled stadiums. Primary after primary, the impossible kept happening. He clinched the nomination. Then came the general election against Hillary Clinton. National polls showed her ahead by 3 to 7 points right up until Election Day. Forecasters gave Trump anywhere from a 15 to 30% chance. On November 8, 2016, he won 304 electoral votes, flipped the Rust Belt, and became the 45th president. The man everyone said could never win had just won the biggest prize in politics. The first term brought triumphs and turmoil. Tax reform, criminal justice reform, Middle East deals, but also 2 impeachments, a pandemic, and bitter division. In 2020, he lost to Joe Biden by 7 million popular votes and 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. Many thought that was the end. Legal battles mounted, indictments, civil suits, a 2024 conviction on 34 felony counts in New York. His net worth took hits, platforms banned him, pundits declared the Trump era over for good. Then came the summer of 2024. On July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, a bullet grazed his right ear. Blood on his face, Secret Service shielding him, Trump pumped his fist and mouthed, "Fight, fight, fight." The photo went around the world. 3 days later, he announced his running mate. He survived a second assassination attempt in September. Through it all, he campaigned relentlessly. On November 5th, he won again. 312 electoral votes, the popular vote with nearly 50%, flipping every battleground state. At age 78, he became the second president in history to serve non-consecutive terms. The comeback was complete. Today, the Trump Organization continues under family leadership while he governs. Truth Social, his media platform, and new ventures in crypto and licensing have pushed his wealth higher. He employs thousands, shapes global markets with a tweet or policy, and remains a cultural force. But the empire isn't just buildings or brands anymore. It's the improbable journey itself. He stayed hungry by treating every victory as temporary. He built what others couldn't by refusing to accept conventional limits. The doubters who called him finished in 1991 became the same voices shocked in 2016 and stunned again in 2024. What does it all mean? Trump's story isn't a fairy tale. It came with real costs: broken marriages, strained family moments, legal wars that would break most people, and decisions that left creditors and workers paying the price when businesses failed. He has acknowledged luck, timing, and the people who stood by him: his father's early backing, Mark Burnett's vision, loyal staff, and the voters who saw something in him when the experts didn't. He learned through necessity how to negotiate from weakness, how to brand relentlessly, how to turn media attention into momentum. He sacrificed sleep, privacy, and normalcy for decades. If he had quit in the early 90s, there would be no Apprentice, no political movement, no second chance at the White House. The lesson isn't that failure doesn't hurt or that privilege disappears. It's that resilience is a choice. When the world writes the final chapter, you can refuse to close the book. For anyone watching who has ever been counted out, lost the job, watched the business crumble, heard the laughter, this story shows what's possible when you keep showing up. Not because it's easy, but because the alternative is accepting someone else's ending. Donald Trump didn't just survive his lowest moments. He used them to rewrite the rules of the game. He went from negative 900 million to the most powerful office on earth, twice. The obstacles were real, the pain was real, the comebacks were earned the hard way. And if a man who stood on Fifth Avenue with nothing but debt and defiance could climb back to the top, then maybe the next chapter of your own story is still waiting to be written. The only question left is, are you willing to fight for it?